My guest today is Jason M. Allen. He's the founder and CEO of Incarnate Games and Art Incarnate, and not an artist. Jason has created quite a stir online, being the first well-known case of winning an art competition using AI. He has found himself at the front lines of the culture war between artists and technologists. His formative piece, Theatre D'Opera Spatial, is a symbol of distaste and frustration for some, and a symbol of the future of creation for others. As a preview, take a peek and see for yourself. Expect to learn why Jason's piece has been so polarizing amongst the art and tech communities. What about Theatre D'Opera Spatial makes it so captivating and hard to look away from? Why, despite not being an artist, Jason is now fighting for AI art. What Jason thinks the future of media will look like, and much more. Before we get started, you may be watching but not subscribed, and that means you may miss future episodes. If you're watching on YouTube, click the red subscribe button below, or if you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, click the plus follow button on the podcast homepage to not miss the next episode. I thank you. But now, ladies and gentlemen, Jason M. Allen. So you've caused quite a ruckus online. You've made quite a few people upset. So why are we here today? What is the backstory? What is your backstory? How did this all come to be? If you could just give some color and set the table, if you will, for this conversation.
Sure. So I'm Jason M. Allen. I'm the CEO of Incarnate Games Incorporated, which is a tabletop game company. We created Ascended Kings, Sing for Your Supper, graphic novels, stuff like that. And more recently, I founded Art Incarnate Incorporated, which I'm the CEO for as well. But, that'll come up as we go through the sort of backstory of all of this. So where are we? Beginning of 2022. And I'm seeing what I know is AI generated art. And I'm thinking, I'm just going to ignore that. I didn't have a real opinion about it. I knew what it was, but I was on the fence about it, like a lot of people, until around March or April, I started seeing artwork that I've never seen ever in my lifetime. And I said, full stop, like, what is going on? I have to be part of this. I have to see what's possible. I need to use this. And the best work and the most beautiful things that I was seeing was coming out of Midjourney. But Midjourney was in beta and only invite only at the time. So I started using things like Wombo Dreams and Starry AI, Night Cafe. I was using Disco Diffusion on Google Colab. Anything I could get my hands on to sort of test out this AI generative technology. And then someone was kind enough on Twitter to give me an invitation to Midjourney. So that kind of propelled me forward a couple of weeks. I did get the invite officially from Midjourney later, but I was already in. And as soon as I was on Midjourney, I was like a kid in the candy store, because I had already, I'm a really creative person. I'm a very imaginative guy. I have wild dreams, out of body experiences. I've, been through a lot. And so that contributes to, the creative factor. And so but what I wanted to do most is learn as much as possible about the tech. And I'm testing for weeks and weeks, and I'm full blast in the community. I started creating like resource guides, like creative resource materials, free online for people to use. It was called the Artist Visual Style Encyclopedia. And so I already started making a name for myself on Midjourney as Incarnate, which is my Discord handle and, well, my handle everywhere. And I
And
re-
for maybe
yeah,
for folks who are not aware of how these tools work, you think, oh, maybe some people think, oh, it's AI generated, it just does it for you. Not the case. Please play around with it. It is so hard to get it to do what you want it to do. So
yeah,
you to get in there, be hands on, be able to create some guides, give some guidance, and offer people some help in creating their visions
right.
is pretty monumental for being that early. Just to set that as a piece, please
Yeah,
go on.
definitely. We'll get into all of that, I'm sure, because of, the backlash that ensued and
Yep.
everything that everyone was saying. It isn't as simple as just, a word salad that you, but yeah, we'll get into that. I was accused of a lot of things. But um so I reached a point after I finished that artist visual style guide encyclopedia where I had the tool now that I needed that didn't exist. So I made it. And so now that I had it, I could just go full testing on a level that I wasn't before. And I was in the middle of like a hypnagogic state, which is like halfway dreaming, halfway awake, where you're like dreaming with your waking eyes. Kind of. I mean, these are crazy experiences I have. I'm not kidding. Like, I used to have not night terrors, but I used to have sleep paralysis. Sometimes that still happens too. So a very vivid experience. Anyway, so I'm in this hypnagogic state, and I'm imagining, dreaming these women in Victorian dresses wearing space helmets, and I thought, that's something I've never seen before personally. That would be really cool. Oh, I could put that into Midjourney. So I start incorporating this concept into my testing, and that's when Space Opera Theater was born. I went private, and I actually made people mad on Discord because I wasn't sharing my work anymore. That was the thing. And I'm like, this is my IP, this is my creative work. I'm working on this now, so I will go on this month hiatus.
And maybe just to interject one more time, sorry to
Yeah.
cut you off.
No, that's
For
fine.
again, for people who don't know, Midjourney has become so popular for generative art because it is open source in the sense that people can see how others are using the tool to create art. So therefore,
Right.
if you see something that you really like, a piece of art that you think is very captivating or compelling, and you say, "Oh, that spurs an image in my head," then you can maybe borrow pieces of the prompt
Hmm.
to then help you get towards something that's of the same nature. It's all going to be different, but going private now is saying, hey, I got something that I really want to work with and tend to. So I'm going to keep that disclosed to myself.
Right.
Again, back to you,
Yeah,
Jason.
that's a good clarification because Midjourney runs on Discord, which is a social platform. It's basically a elaborate chat program. So yeah, everyone can see what you're doing as long as you're in these public channels and you're not paying for private. But I'm a corporate member, and I did pay for private because I saw the writing on the wall right away with all of this. I've been through my own intellectual property uh, legal battles in with Incarnate Games, and so I'm immediately running to the legal implications of things and how am I going to be able to protect my work, et cetera, et cetera. So I went private because I felt like this is incredible. What I've finally been able to establish after so much testing, so many iterations, and I finally found it. Space Opera Theater. I had a prompt, and the award winning prompt that I have still to this day outputs the most amazing, beautiful space opera theater images. I have thousands and haven't released very many of them. And all of that's going to become more obvious as we continue the conversation. But now I realized the Colorado State Fair was just around the corner while I was in the middle of all this testing. And I decided to enter. And it was a two-pronged um, motivation. You can have more than one purpose. One was I really wanted to share my work with people. I wanted them to see what it is I was making. That's the most important piece, right? Is how beautiful this was and how I wanted to share it with the world. But two, I wanted to bring this conversation out of the basement of Discord and into the, larger marketplace of ideas to discuss the debate that was already going on Discord about the nature of art and how it relates to artificial intelligence and what that means. And um, I accomplished that. So I had no idea that it was going to be at the level that it went. It went global. It's a global scale phenomenon. Theatre D'Opera Spatial has become one of the most recognized, if not the most recognized, AI artwork in the world. And it's all thanks to having been the first person to ever win a fine art competition using an AI tool to create my art. And that now that's kind of setting the table, I think, because now we can get into any questions you might have about the win and what people were saying, or things of that nature. But it was a whirlwind, and I'm still going through some of that, and I know that it's gonna most likely happen again because of what we're doing that's been secret for so long. But
Oh,
yeah.
I'm so excited to see it. That adds a lot of color. So thank you for saying all that. So I would like to hear more about the scene. What was in the air at this festival? How were
Yeah,
people reacting to seeing the art? Did they have a hunch that it might be AI generated or something like that, or was there a weird energy going on? Can you maybe talk more about that?
sure. So I don't consider myself an artist. If someone wants to call me an artist, I appreciate that. I accept that. It's a term of endearment. It's really not up to anyone other than yourself what classifies art or classifies an artist. So I think, anyway, so I'm not an artist, right? And I go to this fine art competition submitting my art as a designer. I consider myself a designer. Uh, and there's other artists there when I was submitting the work, and I'm getting like major magnetizing effect of these people. Like I'm drawing them in just by purely holding these pieces, and they're just enamored and like really um, happy and complimentary and asking who I am, what I do, and all this stuff. And I'm like, I'm I'm not surprised. Maybe I was a little surprised by it, but it was an awesome experience. And so, but when I submitted the pieces, I want to clarify this too, because this was a major point of contention. When I enrolled, I said it was created by Jason M. Allen via Midjourney. I made no attempts to hide the fact that I used artificial intelligence to make my work. And then when I actually submitted the pieces physically while I was there in the story I was just talking about, the lady that was accepting the physical pieces asked me, "So, how did you make this? Did you make this on your computer?" And I said, "Yes, I made this using my computer with a program called Midjourney." She goes, "Okay, well then this needs to be in the digital art category. I guess I made some kind of mistake on I've never entered a fine art competition before." So I'm like, "Yeah, whatever you guys, I want to do this the right way. Just, if we have to make a change so it's in the digital art category." Fast forward to when the fair starts. So that's, a couple weeks go by. I walk in. So there's an artist soiree the day before. I go to the gallery, and people are milling around, all the artists and stuff. And I notice I'm looking for my pieces. I see a couple of them. And then I see Theatre D'Opera Spatial, and there's a big blue ribbon right next to it. And I'm like, I turned around and walked away. I couldn't, it hadn't registered yet. I was smiling ear to ear. And so I walk back, and sure enough, first place. I won. And so I'm talking to some of the artists about it, and they're just really complimenting me. I'm not sure exactly what my prattle is or how to talk about it. I've been thinking about that, like how do I talk about this and describe everything that's involved with creating this if that comes up, because a lot of artists don't even like talking about that. Like, it's none of your business. Or how long did it take you to make this? Like, why does that matter? It's just very, artists are very, unique, as all people are. So I'm like, well, how am I going to describe this? And, but yeah, to answer your question, as the fair went on, I went there the next 2 days because very shortly after that, like, yeah, the first or second day of the fair, I had to leave for Las Vegas. And so I went there for the first couple of days, and I was just watching people, and they had all just sort of swarm around uh, the Space Opera Theater winning piece. And I did hear some side conversations. I'm just being honest. Like, I wanted to hear, like, they don't know who I am, and I'm just kind of, hanging out, loitering around. And they're like, one guy did say this guy used artificial intelligence, and I'm just like, yeah, well, I mean, yeah, I could notice that too if I was a person like you that's recognizing it. But I still had no, I'm proud of what I did, so I'm like, hell yeah, I used artificial intelligence. And then the article came out. So I posted, like I was saying earlier, how I took a month hiatus out of Midjourney. Well, I went back onto Midjourney that night and posted onto Midjourney Discord saying, hey, everybody, I know I've been away for a month. This is what I've been doing. And I had pictures of the fair canvas prints. And I told them I won. This is what I made, and I won. And then someone clipped that out of Discord, put it on Twitter, and it went bad viral. And I say bad viral because it got massive negative uh, responses. And Vice emails me, or he contacts me on Discord. It says, I want an interview. Like, when can we do an interview? I'm like, I'm getting ready to do a 12-hour drive to Las Vegas. So I can talk to you when I get back to the hotel. But he pulled the trigger early without the interview, released the Vice article, and the rest is history. It was local newspapers, New York Times, Washington Post, CNN, BBC, Sky News Australia, Japan, Belgium, South Africa, Brazil. I mean, every country is having news reaching out to me, and I'm doing the best I can. But I'm kind of getting ahead of myself. But yeah, I think that I rambled on a little bit. The energy in the gallery. I was hearing stories from other people saying that all the tech community came out in droves to look at this piece that had won after it hit the news, and they had to put a barrier around it
Oh my
because
God.
people kept trying to touch it and see if it was a real painting. And um so they had to, like, put security there and a barrier around it. And I guess there was just like I didn't see this personally, but the security guard was telling me there was just a ton of tech people just like packed into that little hallway. And I'm like, what is going on?
Oh man, I have so many questions that are spurred just from that. So, just to recap, the initial temperature of the room was pretty complimentary while you were at the fair. While people
Hmm.
were marveling at this, they thought that this was just this painting that just draws you in and just holds your gaze. And then that kind of flipped a little bit, at least in perception, because I think that we tend to want to focus more on the negative feedback
Hmm.
than the positive. I'm sure that there was a silent majority that was just like, wow, that's crazy. I remember I read about this back in the fall of 2022. And I just thought, wow, it's mind blowing. It's crazy. The photo, it's the piece of art is just beautiful. And we can touch on that in a little bit. Um, what was your mental state when all this was happening? Did you feel like the world was coming at you or overwhelming, or how did you handle that? Because I would imagine that would be a crushing kind of feeling.
Right. So about a year prior to all of this happening, I was, for the first time ever, having panic attacks for some reason, and I think we all know why. But I'm not going to get into that. So, but there's like this serious anxiety that I'd never experienced before that I had to deal with and handle somehow. And I started jujitsu. And as a jujitsu practitioner for about a year, I had mastered the control over that problem. So I'm in the middle of jujitsu training, right? For almost, I don't want to know. I don't want to say, I'm not sure, maybe 8, 9 months when this blew up. So to me, it was like nothing. Just to be totally forthright, I thought it was, I don't want to sound like I'm being insensitive, but I thought it was hilarious because there was a lot of pressure. There's a lot of pressure and a lot of crushing sort of um, comments and things, awful things that people were saying to me about what I did and how dare I, death threats. I'm like, you want to fight me? Do you want to fight me? And so, like, to me, I thought it was funny. And then, I have all, not to be insensitive, it's because you're not going to fight me about art, please. So, uh, and all my jujitsu buddies, they're nagging me about it. So it was really enjoyable. Like I kind of like debating, so I'm like, I'll argue with you. I'm not going to apologize. And I think that was like there was two big things that I said that really set people off. And one is, I'm not going to apologize. The end. Like, I did what I did, I'd do it again. And I don't care what you think. And two, I said art is dead. But that was taken out of context. Okay. But I mean,
Just kind of provoking, just poking them
well,
just a little bit.
okay. Well, so to put it in context, I was saying, if this is an artwork and if I'm not an artist, then art is dead because,
As you're
and
just
this is
sipping these
better
artist
than art.
tears, you're just
Yeah.
sipping on these artist tears.
So I was saying AI art is better than art. What do you have now? And so, yeah, I am sort of stoking the fire a little bit, but I think that I earned the right to, as someone who is staunchly defending I will die on this hill because I think that all of the negative that came out of this is completely wrong. I think they're being unethical. And I just want to mention that it was only coming from the art community. I only got love from the tech side of things. So that's just a clear and obvious sign that it's not about what they want to make it about. And it's just because yeah. Yeah.
So interesting point that you make, the distinction between the reactions of the tech side and the
Mm.
artist side. So maybe I'm a little biased because I do fall into the tech camp. But why do you think there was such this dichotomy, this disposition between the tech folks loving it and embracing it, and the artists just reveling in their distaste for it? I
Mhm.
mean, perhaps it's a bit of an obvious question, but what is your take on that? Why do you feel like there
Yeah.
was such a different reaction from both sides?
It was shock. So the main factor was shock. Artists were saying when AI first started coming into prominence that it will never be able to do what I do. That's years down the road. Artificial intelligence can't be creative. It's not going to ever be doing creative things. And literally only a few months later, it won a fine art competition. And they're like, what is going on? This is a sacred human experience, like, and I don't discount that. I agree. Art is innately human, and I still think it is. But, not to get into that just yet, but they were shocked by that. Like they don't know, when you get shocked like that and you see a leap from here to here so drastically. I think that the level of power was unexpected, and so they shot the messenger and they lashed out. And I also want to say this isn't an indictment on the entire art community. There is a small, very loud minority of, it's just the truth, narcissistic, vulnerable narcissistic artists out there that have an axe to grind and a soapbox to stand on, that and an agenda to push. And that is all very real. And you can look into that. The art industry is a very cutthroat, competitive, gatekeeping, dare I say, sort of thing. And I saw the underbelly of, and I no, and I will stand behind everything that I'm saying, because at once on one side of my experience with art, I love artists. I've been a huge art appreciation supporter. When it was with Art Incarnate, I'd spotlight my artists. I'd let them keep copyrights. I was, praising everything about them, making it all about them. I love it. Todd Lockwood, Renee DeLise, Dylan Pierpont. I mean, the list just goes on and on. But then fast forward to today, now they're saying, you know, there's no artist. And so that's another point, though. I think that, so I saw this really dark underbelly of the art community that I didn't know existed. I mean, it was implied, but I'm not an artist, so it doesn't matter to me. But now I'm being forced, thrust into this deep end of the pool, and it's crazy. Like some of the experiences that I've had regarding all this, and it has changed my opinion on artists. I'm glad I'm not an artist. I don't want to be associated with that. And I mean, I'm not just saying, I honestly, I mean, I won't go into all the stuff, but like, that reminded me what I just said. Yeah. So what I think, this is kind of harsh, but I'm just going to go through it. I think artists have been harboring, there's a very competitive reality between artists, the cutthroat nature of it. But it's not polite to go around trashing other people's work. Okay. And I mean, there are some controversial artists that'll just say their mind or whatever. But in general, you don't go around talking badly about other artists. You don't. But that being said, there might be some kind of, like, they're harboring some kind of seething, oh, I don't like this guy, or whatever, this artist is doing that and I'm jealous, or whatever it is. I'm not saying this is everybody, but there might be some people out there that are like that. And now they look at me and they say, oh, he didn't do this, he's not an artist, there is no artist. Now I can let out all of that frustration onto space opera theater, because there's no artist, there's nobody to offend, there's nobody to talk trash about. See what I'm saying? I don't know if
Yeah,
I'm.
yeah, no, it's like they feel like you kind of skipped a step, right? Like they feel like you maybe didn't go through the emotional turmoil that artists, I feel like, so often go through to produce masterpieces. And that may not necessarily be true. I mean, you hinted towards a bunch of hypnagogic states, which I want to come
Mhm.
back to later, and other frames of mind that you hinted towards that may
Yeah.
not be so pleasant, that may be a source of this creative fuel. So it feels very displaced for them to have that opinion. But that makes me curious. Why do you think they are so defensive? Do you think it's a matter of the little work that they have is quickly going away for what they've been practicing in? So the field of maybe drawing or animation or digital creation is quickly being replaced by AI tools because it's so much more effective. You can work so much faster. You can iterate faster. You can
Mhm.
go through all of these different stages and steps. Or do you feel like there's something that they feel like is being lost? So it's either is it the work or is it the humanity, in their opinion?
Right. So I can't speak to anyone's state of mind, but I do think that, um, this is a exercise in character building. Uh, if you're so insecure about your work that you're threatened by artificial intelligence, maybe you should reevaluate what it means to be an artist. I'm not trying to step on anybody's toes, but I know a lot of artists that are using this and iterating, like you're talking about, making more money, creating more work at a faster pace, and they have no problem with it whatsoever. What's the difference between that artist and this artist over here that's crying on YouTube because this is the death of artistry as we know it? I think that there's a it's a narcissistic thing. I hate to say it. It's just they want to be noticed and recognized for all, like you said, the hard work and the everything that they did, the whole story of the starving artist. I put so much energy, so much studying, so many hours, and then this guy just comes across, types a few words in a keyboard and wins an art competition. First of all, false. That's not how it works. So you're just projecting like that problem, that whatever you're struggling with, onto another person. You don't even care about what I went through in my life and what I've done to become a creative. And then the level of effort. Is this an art test? What are we talking about here? You know? So I did put, I had to go through and explain. No, I put 80 plus hours into this, over 900 iterations, blah, blah, blah. It's none of your business, actually. Why are we talking about this? And so, uh, but at the same time, really, we're just describing the nature of technology. It's doing it what it's supposed to do as intended, to make things more efficient, uh, faster, and to take out the parts of the work that we don't like to do to make our lives better. No one's stopping you from making your art the traditional way, the past way, whatever. You can still do that. And I know that if you're comfortable with your art form and what the soul and the sacred nature of the art means to you when you express yourself, no one should be able to tell you how you can express yourself. But if you're comfortable with what your medium is, or whatever technology or no technology or whatever that you use to express yourself, and you're comfortable with that, that's what it means. That's an artist. I'm not an artist. So, yeah, take that and use that however you will. I don't need the label to justify who I am. I know who I am. I just feel like maybe they don't. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, looking back historically, it seems like with the advent of new technologies, it's just democratized the whole process, right? Like in the Victorian era, you had practiced painters who would be on a career path. They would work in these oils or these pastels on canvas, and they would work diligently. And if you wanted to go and have your photo taken, you wouldn't have a camera. You would just sit down and they would paint you. But
Mhm.
not everyone could do that. Not everyone could afford that. And then when the camera was released, I mean, people were up in arms. I said,
Mhm.
"This isn't art. This isn't anything. Like, you, you can't replace what I'm doing with a photograph." And hey, like, I would agree with that. I think it's a totally different medium, but I think it's still art. And now it seems like this is progressing to the point of, well, it's not that no one's an artist; it's that everyone's an artist, right? Like, if you
Yeah.
have the vision, the idea, as you said, you were in this hypnagogic state, and you had this vision of Victorian ladies wearing space helmets, and
Mhm.
that provoked this thought in you, and this I'm assuming it was something that you felt was so loud that you needed to get it out. You needed
Mhm.
to express it in some way. Well, as you said, you're not an artist. How are you going to do that without tools that would allow you to do that? Now, I'm not saying this is all one to one, and people will argue one way or the other that there's um, something innately human that's being lost. Or sure, like, I mean, you have your opinion, but from my perspective, it seems like this is just going to open the doors for everyone to create whatever they want to and however they want to. And that to me is what's exciting about this. It's not that artists are going to lose their jobs or anything. It's that everyone can throw their hat in the ring if they have a good idea. They have something that's burning inside of them that they want to get out.
Right.
They have an outlet to do it.
Yeah. Art is bringing your vision into form. That's the simplest definition that I think about when it comes to this. And we all have our own mind's eye. We're all imaginative creatures. We're all telling stories. We're all having dreams. We're all daydreaming. Some of us choose to express those things into a form that you can share with other people. You just created art. However, you do that is up to you. And if it's now, and I don't think I think it's still a completely human experience. The mistake that they're making is they're treating the AI as though it's a person, like they're playing into the very hands of the argument that they're protesting against by treating it like it's a person. It'll never be a person. No matter how advanced AI gets, it's not a person. It's a technology, it's a tool. They just can't admit it's a tool. And so that's why they're struggling so much with it. And, just imagine if we could take the entire collective consciousness of mankind, of humanity, and if there was an artist that could take that could contain the collective consciousness of all humankind and then be able to express using that awareness and knowledge art, and then give that power to every single person. How is this not the ultimate expression of human experience? It's the most creative form of human expression that's ever been devised, in my opinion. And if you're against that, I don't care if you're an artist or not, you're an enemy of art, in my opinion. To be against the most powerful form of human freedom of expression that's ever been made, and you call yourself an artist, really? Anyway, that's my very snide approach at doing that. But of course, like I said before, I am a defender of this because I've been so viciously attacked that I've formulated all of these very strong opinions and I'm sticking to it. And I think I'm having an impact, and I think that's good. But, it just takes 30 minutes to read about diffusion and the deep learning process, how they're used in conjunction together to create this stuff. They keep moving the goalposts. First they're saying, oh, it's not art, or oh, he cheated, or this, blah, blah, blah. Now it's all the way to the point where they're just wanting to say it's outright illegal. They're just breaking the law. And that's because they're out of ideas. There's no cheating. It's not copying anything. It's not how it works. But
So before we move forward here, I just have one more question, and that's just in terms of the background. Did you use any digital tools beyond AI to then touch up the artwork as you went along? For people who don't know as well, you can upload what are called, I believe they're called seeds, where you can have an image that you've created or that you pulled from the internet, and you say, use this as kind of a baseline to kind of texturize what I'm going to get as an output of this AI generation. Did you do any manual touch-ups or refinements in order to move it along towards your vision?
Right. So what you just mentioned is image to image, and Midjourney allows you to do that. You can put images in along with a prompt, and then it'll create an approximation of what it interprets your idea is attempting to express. But I didn't do that. I didn't use any images in the creation of Theatre D'Opera Spatial. It was a pure prompt that I had, iterated and iterated and iterated over and over and over until I finally got it to do what I wanted. But yes, after I finally had, I went through a whole curation process, going through hundreds of images, choosing my best top 3 that I enrolled into the competition. And for Theatre D'Opera Spatial, I pulled it into Photoshop and did a couple passes. Some people call it dust busting. That's like a really old term where you just like taking out specular highlights that make no sense. And I'll never show this image, but there was like a cable on the floor. I've never told that to anybody actually. So I would say, I made little edits, to beautify the image. I would generalize it, but there was like a cable on the floor in the scene, and I had to get rid of that because it was just very distracting and didn't contribute anything to the piece, in my opinion. But everything else has mostly remained untouched. And then I take that image because their output at the time, and I still think their output now, is still at a resolution that's not really suitable for printing at a large scale. So I used gigapixel AI. Obviously, I used Photoshop to do the touch ups, couple passes. Then I bring it into Gigapixel AI by Topaz Labs, which is an upscaler program, and I really blew it up, like high resolution. So it's also using artificial intelligence to create new features where otherwise there would never be there before, like, so it's not just like you're stretching stretching the image. It's like it will expand the image and then create new details that did not exist,
Texturize it.
where it approximates like a content fill effect, on
Mm-hmm.
Photoshop, but on an AI level at a large scale across the entire image. And I was just fascinated by the results. I still am. Anytime I run AI generated images on Midjourney through Gigapixel, it's always better. Always looks better.
And what was the feeling that you felt when you went from this digital copy on a screen, probably like a 4K screen or something, very high res,
Hmm.
to the point where you're holding it in your hands? And what kind of material was it? Was it canvas? Was it
Yeah. So,
how did that feel?
right. That was an experience too. A lot of firsts for me. I'm like, it's very has a strong impact because now it's physically in front of you and it hits you. And so I went through that like everyone when I finally get to see it for the first time physically like that. And I've done that several times on several mediums, and I can't say what we're doing, but I've taken that to the highest level possible with the project that we're currently finishing up right now, and it's beyond like, so I mean that first time that you hit it, like that happened again, but on another level with this project. And I wish I could share it right now, but I'm in negotiations with some people, working out some deals, and I've been chomping at the bit. It's been taking longer than I want, but yeah, there is an undeniable fulfillment that washes over you when you actually see it physically in front of you like that.
Yeah, and I think I'm trying to think about when I'm going to show this because I need to show the art in
Hmm.
this podcast at some point. I think in
Yep.
the intro I might give a teaser. Maybe I'll throw it up again. In fact, there it is. Boom, on the screen.
Nice.
Um, I and I think when I first saw it as well, I was just finishing up the final book in Frank Herbert's Dune series.
Nice.
To
No
me,
way.
it just felt like it was right out of the Dune universe in
Holy
some
cow.
weird kind of
Yeah.
sense. It feels like one of the figures there could be Timothy Chalamet with a space helmet on or
Nice.
something like that. Um, with from your perspective, what about this makes it so captivating? Because
Okay.
again, it feels like I just can't look away from it. Like my eyes are just drawn to it in some weird way, and I don't know what it is.
Right, I can explain that. So I've thought a lot about this, what you're describing. And no one's really asked me that question. So kudos. This is something that I have described in a passing way when I tell people what the piece means to me. But the act of interacting with it, the process of observing the art itself and why it's drawing you in and why it holds your attention and captivates is something I've thought about a lot. And I have an answer, I think, for that. And the first thing is the nostalgia of it. Clearly, it looks like it's pre-Raphaelite, some kind of Renaissance style painting, like it came from the past. But it's it's portraying a future that's beyond our present, right? So it's like this is two things, like, so that grabs you at first. It's like, what am I looking at? Is this past, present, or future? And I really capitalize on that with the Space Opera Theater series. And then the second thing is anachronism. So an anachronism is something from our time or a future time that's misplaced in in the past, in a scene of a past painting, or in a time travel movie or something, or in a movie that's supposed to be in the 1600s, but it was recorded in the 80s, and you see an alarm clock where it's not supposed to be, um, that's an anachronism. So I think that the entire piece is an anachronism. Like this whole it is in essence out of place. And I think that another contributory factor to that is the AI, how it looks. It's clearly AI generated, right? So there's that to it too. So that the essence of it. I don't know if I'm getting this across. Like, so you're being faced with this past, present, future painting, but then it's AI. So it's like that's the whole thing is an anachronism to the nature of what you're looking at, right? So there's
Oh
a lot
yeah.
going.
Oh
So
man.
so there's a lot going on upstairs already, but that's not the clincher. The final piece, and this is why you can't stop looking at it, is pareidolia. And I don't know if you're familiar with what pareidolia is,
No, please explain.
but we all know we try to find faces in everything because of how we look at the wall socket. Like, this is the classic example of pareidolia. You look at a wall socket in America anyway, where you plug in, into the electrical outlet. That looks like a face. It's not a face, but we interpret that as a face because we see the two eyes and the mouth. Or if you're looking at a tree, like in Game of Thrones, the trees have like these faces on them. I mean, it's very obvious that they put the face on there, but you can go like out on a hike or whatever and find a piece of driftwood, or be strolling next to the stream and you see a face, and it catches you off guard for a second. You're like, oh, it's a play of shadow and light or something, and our brains are wired to catch out and interpret those things. This is replete throughout Theatre D'Opera Spatial and other space opera theater images. As you're looking at it, your mind is trying to translate things that don't make sense, but it's beautiful. So it's like I'm looking at something that I don't understand. This little part right here. What is this? What is that? So you have to know. You want to know, what is it? I can't figure it out. What is it? So you just keep looking at it and trying to figure it out, and then finally you're like, oh well, it kind of looks like a hand or something. And now this is the crowning feature of AI, in my opinion. And I think that people that are so obsessed with the hyper real, ultra HD CGI sort of approach to doing things, it leaves nothing to interpretation. And I don't really, think that art is as good. But when you're looking at something like this, it's like everything's open to interpretation. So I think that answers that question.
Yeah, yeah. Wow. Yeah, that to me is the ultimate too. Just seeing the faces really resonated. I just had a conversation with a professor at the University of Waterloo named Jonathan Fugelsang, who also cited the same things about always trying to find patterns in the world, seeing faces, as you said, like in trees or nature, clouds, even houses. If you look at certain houses and you have the eyes as the
Right.
windows, and you can kind of
Hmm.
parse it out. It just kind
Definitely.
of speaks to our kind of our monkey brain of looking for social kind of implications for all this stuff. Um, and I'm very glad that you are so fired up about this whole series, because I personally want more. And
I
based
can't
on
wait to
the
share.
the like visceral reaction that you've gotten online, I was hoping that wouldn't deter you. And
Not at all. What's
I
deterred me is the Copyright Office.
mm, well, why don't we get into that? I had that for kind of at the tail end, but why don't we explore? So as we hinted out earlier, you had said that you spent, and again, not that it really matters, but you said that you had spent over 80 hours and 900 iterations to develop this piece.
Right.
Yet the US Copyright Office doesn't believe your work should be protected under copyright law, which is fascinating to me. It's
Yeah.
ridiculous in my opinion. So, in response to your copyright request, the office actually responded, and this is a direct quote from your press release.
Hmm.
We have decided that we cannot register this copyright claim because the deposit does not contain any human authorship. Instead, the deposit contains only material that your client solicited from an artificial intelligence art generator.
Yep, that's the exact quote.
Why is that their stance? And how much of a visceral reaction does that get out of you?
So, yeah, I mean, it just plays into everything that I have already been through. So I'm not surprised, but I can't speak for the reasoning why that's their stance. I think there could be a lot of ways to interpret that. But as far as my attorney and I are concerned, any sort of social opinion about anything related to technologies used in the creation process should have no bearing on decisions as it applies to the law. So they, I think, are misinterpreting the law, and so does my attorney, Tamra Pester, and a lot of other PhDs and attorneys and people along the way who are looking at this as well also disagree with the Copyright Office. So I decided to, we're going to go all the way to the Supreme Court with this if need be. We're prepared and able to fight, and I will fight. I will fight like hell until every avenue is exhausted, and I'm not shy about voicing that fact. So we put in a request for reconsideration shortly after they denied my copyright claim. Um, I mean, I could go over the entire process that we went through with the Copyright Office, or I could just reduce it real briefly. We typically, when you go through a copyright claim, it's a 1-2 done sort of thing. I send it in, you look at it, copyright, deny, yes, no, that's it. With this, they recognized who I was immediately. And they're like, we know you used AI to make this, blah, blah, blah. Tell us your process, tell us the prompt, tell us this, tell us that, tell us everything. And sorry, but the prompt is my intellectual property and it's confidential. That's my prerogative. I own it. So you're telling me what? That I don't own it? It would not exist without me. And why is it that I'm the only one that has access to the files? It's just stupid. On a very common sort of layman level, right? It's like Occam's razor. The simplest explanation tends to be the right one. But, of course, we go into legalese and all the legal stuff about it. We go back and forth with them 3 times. I end up giving them a full on tutorial, basically, on how I made my piece without actually telling them the prompt. I was very generous by doing that. If someone read that, which is part of which will be part of the public record, they could use that as a framework within which to create their own piece using my methods without actually having said anything about the prompt. I just say I do this, I do that, then I focus on this aspect, then I talk about, color, then I talk about the composition, and then just like basic, but then they still denied it. So I mean, I'm not going to go over the entire request for reconsideration, which they still haven't answered, by the way. But after we put in the request for reconsideration, I started my cover protest, which is copyright obstruction violates expressive rights. And 1 week after I released that protest statement, they came out with Library of Congress Copyright Office Copyright Registration Guidance, works containing material generated by artificial intelligence. So they came out with this whole document about the process for submitting works that are created using AI. It's like, so they're watching what we're doing and they're I mean, we even paid for this to be expedited, and they're still not answering. I don't think they know what to do because, there's lawsuits being thrown around left and right. Midjourney's in a lawsuit with DeviantArt and another, who is it? The other one, Stable Diffusion? I don't know. Yeah, maybe. It's a class action lawsuit, artists versus, So maybe they're just trying to be very careful, but they did make a mistake. They're making a lot of mistakes. I'm kind of bifurcating here. I don't know if you want me, I don't know if you want me to go over the highlights of the request for reconsideration or the highlights of me destroying their guidance document.
I think dealer's choice, whatever you feel like would be the
Okay,
correct step.
let's cover
Perhaps,
the request for reconsideration real
sure.
quick. So these are the highlighted points. I'm not going to release the document until everything's done, but this is basically what we responded to the Copyright Office on the quote that you said. The work should be registered due to the misapplication of the quote unquote human authorship requirement. Mr. Allen's original contribution, AI tools being akin to other artist tools, improper factors considered by the examiner, and various public policy reasons. So these are all the reasons that it should be registered. Now we'll go into those. The refusal letter incorrectly claims that Mr. Allen's work doesn't meet the human authorship requirement under the Copyright Act. However, Mr. Allen's work involves human authorship, with the AI tool merely serving as an assisting instrument in creating his artistic vision. And we kind of already covered all that. My mind's eye, my thoughts, my words, my expression. I'm bringing vision into form. It's a human endeavor. The AI isn't a person, it's a tool, blah, blah, blah. Next part, copyright law focuses on the origin. This is great. Copyright, my attorney is a genius. She's a rock star. It was sublime. The document. I don't know what they're gonna say. Copyright law focuses on the origin of the idea expressed, not the tools used in the creation process. AI assisted artwork represents a new and innovative form of creative expression, and it should be eligible for the same protections as other creative works, such as traditional painting or sculpture. It's just a new art form. Next, Allen contributed more than a quote trace of originality in creating his work, involving continuous interactions to direct the artwork's look and feel. Denying copyright protection based on the tool used could set a discriminatory precedent and undermine the intent of the copyright protection, which is to safeguard the expression of creative ideas originating from human authors. And I'm really tempted to go into the other, but we'll save that. Put a pin in that. I want to talk about in the next part how this is going to be a disaster for all art if they. But we'll get to that.
Okay.
Let's see. The refusal letter appears to consider factors that contradict Section 310 of the compendium, such as aesthetic value, artistic merit, and the author's effort or skill, which should not impact the copyrightability of the work. That they were even saying these things, it's not even in the books. It's like you're just expressing your ideas of what's going on here. It's nothing to do with legal lawfare or whatever. Then this last piece here, the value of art is subjective, and I kind of mentioned this already. The value of art is subjective and determined by the market, and societal views on the use of AI tools should not influence whether or not a work meets requirements for copyright protection. And that's just the Cliff Notes.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a 12-page document in reality right here. This.
It seems like you've kind of hit this roadblock at a inopportune time. It's a perfect storm. I think generative AI, ChatGPT, all of these tools are creating such chaos for regulators that I think they're just so scared of what the future looks like because they have no control over what is happening. I know China has already blocked all generative AI because they can't control it. That doesn't really vibe with the CCP's track record. Italy has banned ChatGPT based on, I believe it's data protection laws. And the EU is now trying to pass the first AI legislation for how to govern and how to regulate these new tools. So I feel like you are just at a point in time where they are, pardon my crass language, they're shitting their pants. They don't know what to do. They don't want to misstep.
Yep.
I want to turn it back over to you to now. I believe that you tempted us with the dunking rebuttal that you guys laid back on them.
Yeah. So that's just the request for reconsideration, which we submitted. Then I started my protest. Right.
Mm.
A week after my protest, they come out with this guidance document. It's called Copyright Registration Guidance, Works Containing Material Generated by Artificial Intelligence, if you want to look it up. I think it's like a 5 to 8 page document. It's nonsense. It's a bunch of nonsense, in my opinion. I'm not a lawyer, but um, I do have some really good points about the mistake that they made. So they say, I'm not going to go over their document, but I'm going to talk about this one quote. They say, in the case of works containing AI generated material, the office will consider whether the AI contributions are the result of mechanical reproduction or instead of an author's own original mental conception to which the author gave visible form. Excuse me?
Mm.
What are you saying? You just said you're going to determine whether or not the AI material was made by the author's mental conception. Hello? That was the or part. They just admitted that there's human contributions. They just admitted that it's a person that's making it.
That's a big or. That's a very big or.
Yeah. So are they going to go and then they do? I'll just finish this last part. The answer will depend on the circumstances, particularly how the AI tool operates and how it was used to create the final work. Okay. This is necessarily a case by case inquiry. If a work's traditional elements of authorship are produced by a machine, the work lacks human authorship and the office will not register it. This is a case by case inquiry where they're going to what? Determine whether do they know what my mental conceptions are? So on a case by case basis, you're going to determine what I was thinking or not when I made my work. Get out of here. Are you kidding me with this? Anyway, so there's, and I kind of, we don't need to go through all of my counterpoints to it. There's inconsistency with the policy evaluating the human input. It's a misinterpretation of the law. They have flawed logic. It's a contradiction with already established works. It's a violation of expressive rights. But this is the point that I put a pin in earlier. This is the most dramatic part. I'll read this whole part. The indistinguishability of AI artworks. As AI technology continues to advance, it is likely that AI generated works will become indistinguishable from human authored works if it's not already. This will make it increasingly difficult to determine whether a creator has used AI tools in their creative process. So there goes the case by case basis situation. The copyright, this is my highlighted part. The Copyright Office's refusal to grant copyright protection to AI generated works could lead to suspicion and skepticism surrounding all creative works, ultimately undermining the whole foundation of the copyright system because it turns everybody into a suspect because nobody can prove whether or not you did or did not use artificial intelligence. So, did you do it? Did you use it? Did you use it? It's like, what's the problem? Like, yeah, use AI. It's a tool. Like, what is the stigma? Where's the stigma? Like, you don't like it? I didn't use my hand with a brush to do it. What's your problem with it? I get really animated about it. It's because it's not a person. They can't admit that it's a tool. And until they do, we're going to keep doing this stupid song and dance. And then they'll realize their mistake later, years down the road, when an artist who has artist block decides, well, I can't figure out what to make. I'm just going to come over. Oh, this is a perfect composition. I'm going to paint that. Didn't he just use AI?
Yes. Yeah.
Didn't he? Yeah.
Yep.
Was that his mental conception according to the Copyright Office? What are we doing?
Yeah, that seems like that's almost checkmate. And when you said that, I got chills running up my body because, and I'm sure that you stay very close to the world of generative AI. You've probably come across a gentleman named Boris Edgelson.
Oh yeah, the photographer.
For people who are unaware, Boris Edgelson, which, and Boris, forgive me if I'm mispronouncing your name, he has just won the Sony World Photography Award with generative AI. Actually, he didn't win it. Excuse me. He was awarded it, to which he rejected it because he created it with AI as a statement piece. So to your point of how can you not protect this work because people will not be able to tell what is AI and what is not, and that's just another example for you.
Yeah.
Like winning a world photography award with
Mhm.
AI, the cat's out of the bag.
Right.
It's over.
And Sony still, they knew that they said they were under no auspices. They knew it was AI from the beginning, according to them. And that might be saving face. I can't point fingers. I don't know what the truth of that matter is, but they said they knew it was AI and they gave it to him anyway, because I think that there are a lot of companies and people that see the writing on the wall. It's like, this is a new form of expression. You are literally creating a photograph. It's just not the way that we used to. It's
Mm.
I don't really know how else to put it. Is it not a photograph? Is like we were talking about earlier, we're taking the purpose, like what we're trying to do is take the collective consciousness of all mankind and distill it down to an algorithm where we can just use in a very impactful and meaningful way the skill that we've all acquired over so much time. What's wrong with doing that? And so if you have to classify it as AI or whatever to, justify whatever it is you do, fine, but it's not going to work for long. And, Eldigerson, I don't know how to say his name either. Boris
again, sorry, Boris.
Eldigson, maybe that's it.
Mm.
Uh, his refusal to accept the reward, I think, could just be seen as a publicity stunt, kind of. People would say, well, what you did was a publicity stunt. Well, I'm not apologizing. I did make it. I do accept the award. I am the person that made it, right? He's taking a different approach where, while he claims the AI generated images are not photography, he utilized his photographic knowledge and skill to create the award winning piece with the
Mm.
AI.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, you can say it's not photography, dude, but you used everything that you know about photography to make it.
Right.
So his actions actually legitimize AI tools as an art form because it's highlighting the ongoing obsession with labels and challenging traditional definitions of photography. But so, I mean, I'm not judging him either way. He can decide to do whatever he wants, but don't call it for what it is. You used your skills and talent as a photographer to win that.
Is there any precedent to support or harm your case that you're aware of?
Any precedent that
Yeah, I
could?
was thinking perhaps there's something, and I know it's not one to one, so maybe it wouldn't even work. But again, the advent of photography or
Oh, well,
things like that.
so I think the only case that they kind of are running with that has any legs is memorization. So there's a process called memorization using AI where it will try to exact duplicate something, but it's still not a photocopy. It's not like a Xerox scanned photocopy. Like if you had a picture of Doctor Strange or something, like a movie poster, and then using generative AI, it recreates that image. It's still, you can still tell that it's not identical. It's not. I mean, if you wanted to make the identical copy of it, just copy it. Just
Mm-hmm.
copy it. It's not copying anything. That's not how generative AI works. And you can learn about the diffusion and deep learning process on your own time. I'm done trying to explain this to people. We've had plenty of time. It's a glorified matrix calculator. It doesn't save any of the training data anyway. And it's not illegal to look at copyrighted works. So the AI is just looking at images. It's not copying. Anyway, back to the point. Um, this example of an AI generated image memorization process could be looked at as see as this is proof, it's copying or whatever. That's transformative at least. And you can point to the Andy Warhol Supreme Court case that just recently happened to verify everything that I'm saying. Like, it's not going to fly. They're fighting against the tide with a broom, and it's eventually just going to come out in the wash. Everyone loves it, everyone's using it. What are you going to do about it?
So I want to ask you about, you had mentioned before, and if this goes nowhere, if this is not something that we can legally talk about, I'm going to blame my Canadian history for not knowing the American legal system. You had mentioned that you were willing to escalate this to the Supreme Court if need be, and you said that you guys have enough backing to do
Mm-hmm.
so.
Oh yeah.
I would imagine that the world of tech is probably rallying towards your side on this because these new companies, they want to
Right.
have their work protected. They want to create tools that people will use
Yeah.
to then create art, and that's all protected. Can you speak on that? Like, what kind of allyship have you
Mm-hmm.
found or support have you been given?
Yeah, I'm not able to disclose. I'm under NDAs right now with a few companies that uh I know I will be able to use to leverage the catapulting campaign of what I'm doing. So I'm not wanting to act like I'm masterminding this grand plan or anything, but I am planning, and I am trying to coordinate between the responses with the Copyright Office along with the things that I'm doing to make the biggest impact with my statements as possible. And that takes a lot of groundwork. That takes a lot of planning and negotiations and just working with things. But yes, I mean, to speak to your point, there is a lot of companies that are on my side with this. I heard recently from another podcast of a girl that worked for Facebook AI. Uh, she told me that everyone in Silicon Valley is printing out your piece and hanging it up in the offices. And when she told me that, she goes, everybody's doing it. She's like, every new office, every startup, they all have your piece hanging up on the wall. And to me, that was just like a really emotional kind of thing to hear. It's like, yeah, the tech side really is on my side. And then she pointed me to some major Twitter page. This guy has millions of followers, and his banner is Theatre D'Opera Spatial. And there's things like that people show me frequently, and it just blows me away every time. And right now, my work is being projected on the University of Toronto. What's it called in Toronto? The university there, if you're from Canada, I don't know. But
Yeah, it's the University of Toronto, U of T. They have a few other campuses, but UT is the big one.
so they're projecting my AI work on their exhibit on like literally the walls of the campus.
Oh, so cool.
And
So
so
cool.
it's things like that that just really encourage me to push further and push forward, because uh, I've been told by a lot of people, we really appreciate what you're doing. You're fighting. It's not just you. You're fighting for all of us. And that means a lot to me. And I feel like I have an obligation as being the guy that was thrust by opening Pandora's box into all of this to do right by everybody according to what I believe is true and right, and legally speaking, honestly, a human creation. And we'll see where we end up.
I think it's very, very clear that this is a new wave. This is a new era for tech, a new era for humanity, I would say. And the
Oh,
fact that
yeah.
you find yourself at the center of it as almost like the martyr of this movement, I'm getting chills just talking to you. I can't even imagine what you have gone through in the last year.
It's crazy.
It's got to be insane.
It
Um,
is.
to
It is
kind
insane.
of maybe take what we've been talking about and maybe direct it a little forward facing. You seem like you're very tuned into this world, as we just talked about. You have all this support, all this backing. You've been an early adopter of these tools. What do you think is coming next that will be the next shock to the culture, to everyday people. What do you think will be the next shoe to drop?
Yeah, AI is moving so fast, you know. Like we're always seeing something new coming out with AI every day. And it's still just a glorified matrix calculator. You know, it's not really AI. Um, so when I think of AI, true AI, I think of something more like AGI, artificial general intelligence. I don't buy into the whole doomsday scenario Elon Musk paints. Um, Obviously, he's a very successful and well versed person in the tech world, and you know maybe his predictions are valid, but um, I don't think that's going to be our future. I think that the problems that we're talking about and the ethical issues that we're talking about aren't AI issues; they're human issues. Um, these are human problems. Anything can be used for good or for bad. I know that's not really answering your question, but you know, there may come a time where the human aspect of all of this is removed entirely, where the user is no longer required, where we just don't need, you know, where it's literally the beginning of the Matrix, you know, the Animatrix, where it's City IO, where they just divorce themselves from humanity completely because we're vestigial and slowing them down. You know, then at that point we'll have crossed the threshold. I just don't see that happening. And you know, thinking about these doomsday scenarios, I think we should kind of stay grounded and focus on the actual issues rather than painting all of these terrible scenarios. But yeah, to be honest, I think that what's going to happen is some artist out there that we've already seen a little bit of this. There was a guy from MoMA, the Museum of Modern Art,
Mm-hmm.
that cataloged the entire collection of the Museum of Modern Art and put it through a training algorithm and created the MoMA latent space, where he was then creating an interpretation through latent space between 2 points of, you know, addresses of paintings in that space and creating like a visual interpretation of an interpolation between those two paintings, like things like that, really unique things that only artists kind of have the knack for, to use something as it's not intended to be used, to create something different and meaningful and beautiful. So we're gonna probably see some crazy stuff that's gonna blow people's minds. I already have one of those things that I'm not announcing yet. That's gonna, I think that's gonna, well, I know it's gonna blow people's minds because I've already witnessed it in some test cases. People are like, "What did you do? What is this?" So, but you know, in the more distant future, I don't know, like Neuralink, you know, like so I call this an imagination station where
Mm.
you express your vision through your words. You know, you're speaking into reality your vision. You know, it's like we're gods. You know, so and then when you see it, it's like that sparks a new reaction, like a new idea, a bright idea that then reinforces what you were already thinking. And now you have, oh, well, I'll try it this way now. So, and then there's like this feedback loop, a creative feedback loop. Imagine only if for a second, if that was plugged directly into your brain with like a neural link or something. And I'm sure this isn't avant garde. People have talked about it, where you're literally experiencing an AI generated dream world in your mind's eye as a self force, like Inception or something, you know, like people, I don't know. That's definitely in the realm of possibility with the way the technology is going. And then, you know, how fast AI can advance because the AI becomes more powerful. Yeah, who knows what's going to happen, man? We might just be in the matrix before we know it.
um, Yeah, the notion that everyone's an artist, everyone will have their own sandbox where they can play around and generate new media, new content so quickly. I think that's coming very, very soon. I think that we are going to quickly become the narrators of our own media consumption. I think it's not too far away where people will come home from a long day of work. they're exhausted, they're tired, and they'll say, you know what, I need something to cheer me up.
Mm-hmm.
Create me a 45-minute rom-com, use me as the lead
Exactly.
actor and
Yeah.
my girlfriend as the lead main or the love interest or whatever,
Yeah. And then watch
and
10
watch it.
different versions of that movie, you know?
Exactly. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think things are getting crazy. I just recently watched the movie Her again with Joaquin
Okay.
Phoenix and Scarlett
Yeah.
Johansson.
I'm familiar.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
That is coming sooner than people
Yes.
realize.
Yeah.
And it's terrifying and it's awesome and it's exciting. And I can only hope that people will take it as an opportunity to fully express themselves in a way that they couldn't before, much like I think you have.
Yeah. So I think that too. I think eventually and hopefully soon we'll all have our own or multiple AI assistants. I really want this to happen. I want this to be a product, not just a thing that you can make. Um, I created Isabella, who is my GPT-4 art incarnate assistant. And she has her own personality and everything. She's like my um, professional business coach and manager. Like I have a publicist and I have people that work for me, but when it's just me working or whatever, and I'm like, oh, hey, remember this thing we were talking about with this email that we answered to this guy? And she's like, yeah, I know what you're talking about. What's the deal? And well, here, this is what's going on with that. Can you tell me like how best to respond with that knowledge? And she comes back with, this beautiful thing. And I'll just send emails from Isabella to people because I get so many requests. And then that way I don't even have to feel, because there's a lot of stigma still about the AI thing. So when I send an email like that, I say, it's from Isabella. So she says, I'm Isabella, Jason M. Allen's AI assistant. You emailed me about this, blah, blah, blah. This is how we think about it. And yeah, but that's, GPT-4. I created that completion using prompts. And it's not really a product. Once we have this actual thing that everyone can have, that movie, The Golden Compass, or what is it called? There was Her Majesty's Secret Service. What was it? No, Her Dark Materials. It was an HBO series where they all have their own demon.
Mm.
I think of something like that where we'll all have our own AI. But yeah, you're right. I think that entertainment will be completely customized down to the individual at a certain point. And that's scary for a lot of reasons to a lot of people and companies and power structures. So yeah, it's going to be a wild ride.
I have to confess, I think I'm not sure if I got a response from you after Isabella. I got an email response from you, and I think I could kind of tell that it was AI. I wasn't exactly sure at the beginning, and then I
Oh,
was sitting with
sure.
it, and I was like, I think that was AI.
Yeah, well,
And
some of
for
the points that I had answered you with, I used AI to create like the rejection of rite of passage. AI
oh,
is the
interesting.
ideal. These are studies that I've done using GPT-4. And
Gotcha.
so, yeah, that's where you're seeing that AI for sure. But that was too personalized of an email for me to have Isabella write that. It would have been too complicated to get the points that I wanted to make across. But yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, I've done book studies with GPT-4. I've done, and it's not like, and that's another thing. It's not like I just, hey, give me the answer. I mean, you can do that a little bit with GPT-4, but not curated to a point where it's really getting your personal points across. I mean, it takes some prompting to get to a place where it's like, yeah, this is my voice, this is what I believe, and this is how I talk. So I've been playing a lot with that too, and it's like it's one of the it's a crazy thing. It's like, yep, that's everything that I want to say. This is exactly I agree with everything this is saying. So just send that.
Yeah, when I first got the email and I read it and I thought, you know what, I think that's AI because it kind of expanded on every point that I sent you, and it kind of elaborated in a way that felt kind of AI based on my experience. And I was talking to my friends and I was like, yeah, I don't really know how to feel. Like, I don't know how that makes me feel.
Mm-hmm.
And then I thought about it for a little bit longer, and I'm like, hey, if I'm getting an AI email from anyone, if I get an AI email from Jason,
Yeah,
I think that's totally fine. It's
it
kind
is.
of, in character. It's
Right.
right
And
on right on there.
I am in a unique position where I can kind of do whatever I want with AI. So it's like if someone asks me, "Did you use AI for that?" in a condescending way, I just hit him back with the pro. Oh, absolutely. You're not going to hold me down. You're not going to hold that over my head. You see what I've been through?
Well, I mean, if you have so much inbound too, like you have
Yeah,
to be able to manage that. And it's not like you can just like hire a team. I mean, you may be able to, but not everyone can hire a team.
right.
So to use AI to scale that, I think is just totally reasonable. Two more questions for you before we
Yeah,
depart.
we're
They'll
good.
be pretty quick ones. And we have alluded to this before, and you don't need to go into great detail. I know that things are still under wraps for you. What is coming next? What can people look forward to from you coming out?
Repeat the question. My chat was saying something. Sorry about that.
Yeah. So just kind of closing up shop here. What is coming next from you? What can people expect or look forward to?
Oh,
From whatever
mhm.
that you can talk about. I know that you have some
So
stuff
I'm in
that's in the wraps.
yeah, I don't want to let the cat out of the bag. I'm working with I'm potentially, so it's potential, fingers crossed, working with a household name brand, a very well-known company that I'm using their technology to produce this exclusive reveal that will be the tip of the spear for the launch of the Space Opera Theater Gallery. Okay.
I was hoping you would say that. I was really
And
hoping you'd say that.
and that I just don't have a hard date yet because I'm in the middle of negotiations, but it's going to happen. I mean, we have it. I'm not going to say how we made it, but it's very lovely, lovely, lovely. It's the best thing I've ever done, and I'm very proud of it. And so are the people who worked with me on the project too. We're all very pleased. So that's gonna you can go to jasonmallen.com or artincarnate.com for updates to find out um, exactly the name. And I'm gonna send out email updates. I have a pretty big email list of people wanting to that have been waiting, and I'm like, I just can't tell you, but I just have to be careful with how I do it because I just, I'm always very protective of my work. I'm sure you can tell with the
For sure.
whole copyright thing and seeing the writing on the wall from Midjourney at the very beginning. Like, how am I going to protect my work? So, because I've been through these problems in the uh, legal system before. So everything, like my publicist was just calling me, there's definitely things happening. There's a lot of moving parts, but once it's finally done, I feel like we're going to be sailing free and open. And I can't wait because I really want to show everything that we're doing. And it's bothering me too, because it's just how the nature of it. And maybe we'll be in New York too. So just little little hints.
Ladies and gentlemen, Jason M. Allen. Jason, I adored the shit out of this conversation. This was so much fun. For anyone listening who wants to follow your work, I know that you just dropped your website. If you just maybe want to recap that, any other social media,
Right.
please plug away.
Yeah. Jason _ M _ Allen on Instagram, artincarnate.com, and jasonmallen.com. You can sign up to the newsletter there for the email updates. Yeah, I think that's all of my social stuff that I share out. I mean, I'm on Facebook too. Or I'm on Discord. It's Incarnate. You can those things are easy to find by searching for me. Coincidentally, it's crazy. When I type my name into the search bar, I see my painting. It's just that's a crazy experience. It's been a whirlwind, but I'm loving it, and I really appreciate everybody for supporting me, and I really appreciate those who are hating me. I love you. Just kidding. But everything's going great. So
I think the work that you're doing is so important for so many reasons, and the art that you're putting out it's just awe-inspiring. So keep doing what you're doing. I look forward to seeing what's next, and hopefully, I would love to come to this gallery if that's happening. So
definitely, yeah, I'll keep you posted. Thank you, Jack.